Hey my friends, I'm going to do a really kind of strange video today. I didn't expect to actually do what you're about to watch, but I'm just going to shut up now and let you just watch it. Kind of put things away. And, sometimes I'll do, oh, that's so pretty. But those people clearly are not quilters. Coming out from this square going downwards would be, I don't know, are these little prairie dogs? Is that what they are? I just think they're overly sweet. Before I let you go to the clip, I just want to say, as I'm stopping the camera from talking with you guys here, I'm going to rush right over to YouTube and click play on a video that I've been wanting to watch. And that's Miriam at Stitched Obsessed. I just love watching her and her father work together on building her shed. So if you're not following her already or a subscriber or whatever, hop on over. I'll see if I can't remember to put it in the description so you'll have a link. But if not, the name of the channel is Stitched Obsessed and her name is Miriam. So she has been doing everything from, like, I think a corner of her bedroom or something like that. And, for a while. And she does a lot of stuff, which makes me feel completely incompetent. Seriously, it does. Anyway, so her father's come along beside her and he's going to help her. She bought a shed and she's put that in her backyard. He's helped her with it. They're renovating it. And it's the coolest thing in the world, what they're doing. And watching them do it together, I love it. Like, I love the family part of that. And seeing them kind of play off of each other is pretty cool. And, I just love design in any fashion. If you're designing a shed into a quilt shop, it's cool. Anyway, go watch her and watch this next video clip. We'll see you at the end. Can you relate? Oh my gosh. I know some of you have to be able to relate to having, I don't know what you might call my table right now. It's not just a cutting table, it's a project table, it's a display table, it's a sewing table, it's an ironing station, it's a little bit of everything. And I don't know if any of you are like me and you watch the videos about minimalism and you think, oh, my life would be so much better if I were to have less stuff. And you think, well, when is that day going to come? Anyway, you watch these videos and they talk to you about decluttering and all this, and they tell you not to have any horizontal surfaces because any horizontal surface is going to collect stuff. That's true. But those people clearly are not quilters. Like, there's just no way they're quilters. You got to have a horizontal surface or two or three. Just like you got to have, I can't get into this package, just like you got to have design walls. You got to have some vertical space. And for those of you who are younger and healthier and, have spines that work properly and knees that work properly or hips or whatever, you can get away with the floor. Then the same thing goes for that. You got to have some floor space. So I'm trying not to make myself feel bad about my table right now. I actually have allocated onto my calendar 30 minutes every Friday to clean up the studio, to vacuum and, kind of put things away. And, sometimes I'll do, oh, that's so pretty. So some weeks will be better than others, right? You'll be able to do better than other weeks. This week, I was on the run. So as I moved things forward here and there, some other things just kind of piled up behind me. That's okay. I can move forward our Avery quilts. I've got time. I can do this. We're still going to move forward our Avery quilts. Do y'all see what I'm seeing? Look at those. Look at those. Oh my gosh. I just said in yesterday's video that with this fabric that I bought, that's right down here beneath me, that I'm going to be doing an Irish chain. That's what you've got pretty much here with this. I'll put it on the design wall and you can see how that turns into an Irish chain. So, yeah, my Irish chain is going to be a little bit different. And I've got it sketched out, but I thought, it'd be nice if I use this as an opportunity to learn EQ8 so I can do a better showing to you of what I want it to look like. And then also, the benefit of being able to do your own designs in EQ8 is that you can color it and get a feel if you like how that's going to look, how your quilt's going to look before it's done, before you start cutting into your fabric. Enough of me. Let's get back to this. These were sent because we already had some like this. I'm going to have to like turn my brain off of everything else that's been going on in it and rethink where this fabric was. It won't take me long. You know what? I just decided to turn the camera back on and go ahead and create a video, kind of like a live, even though it's not live, it will be recorded. You just, come over here, help me declutter my table. We'll just sit here and chit chat for a little bit, make it nice, a short, sweet video. And then I'll create another video for you guys for Avery Quilts. So what's on my mind here as I'm looking through everything? First thing is, I know I've seen this. Which set of blocks was it? That's my goal. That's my goal right now, to figure out what do these go to. There wasn't a name on this, but I'm pretty sure I know who it's from. And I know that I had a message, I think it was through Instagram, about those. And we'll see. I'll have to go back and read through my messages to make sure these are the blocks that I'm thinking about. The next thing in front of me is this pink fabric. You see this? This was what I was wanting to use for the sashing for the pink unicorn. And, somebody said it might be too much. And I personally disagree. I think it'd be great for it to just be like a wash of color. But, I want to listen to you guys. So we will take a look at, on the Avery quilt, we'll take a look at doing something besides this. And then the other initiative, so far I have 2 initiatives. I picked up 2 things in front of me, and I already have 2 things on my to-do list. So I'm setting these aside so I don't forget that those are initiatives. All right, so what else is going on here? I've got my fabrics that we've been considering for the applique quilt. I need to set those aside, put them where they belong. And everything else here in front of me is either the fabrics that I want to put together and get cut up so that I can do my Irish chain quilt, or it's for Avery Quilts. I don't think there's anything else. Oh, there's my Mars stuff is on here too. So I got to get things separated. And you see that right there? That little bear, that big bear, that's a big old grizzly bear, or maybe even polar bear. I goofed up more than just what I told you about already. So initially, I told you guys about an area where there's loose fabric that was going to be puckering if I continue to stitch, and I had to take out a bunch of stitching. Well, I did all that. Took forever. I'm going to tell you, I had the wildest unpicking session. I had one top thread last and last and last and last. It didn't break while I kept on pulling it up to be able to snip the bobbin thread underneath it. And that bobbin thread, when I measured it, it was 9 yards long. That's just kind of wild to me. Anyway, it took a long time because the extra fabric that was on the bottom wasn't just in one spot, right? So you had to take out a lot of stitching. Everything to the left of that area had to come out. And then a few things that were beneath it. You just have more problems when you're a newbie. You're just going to experience things differently whenever you're a newbie. And this is one of my trials. I'll have to keep this quilt either on the long arm or take it down to the dining room and unstitch it there, because as I finished up with it and I thought, oh my gosh, this is great, yay, I'm done. And I went to unroll it and check it all out. There's a big pucker close to the top, maybe about a little more than a third of the way from the top. And it's a big pucker, like it's a lengthy pucker. So it's not an appropriate, oops, I'm sorry kind of thing at all. So it has to come out. I felt so good about the work I did to fix this quilt. It took time, like I talked to you guys in the last video. And I know that I'll feel good whenever I get this quilt done properly. Is it humbling? Very much so. It is very humbling. Okay, let me put some things up because I want to show you. I think I need to use a different surface here. I need to use my other table so that I can separate my containers from my workspace so I can put things in my containers. And I can't wait. I want to talk to you about this Irish chain quilt. And what I really want to do as soon as we get this table cleaned up is I want to get some of those blocks that we got last week. I want to play with those on the design board and see what other quilt might be really close to getting put together. Because we have 2 from last week that I feel like this coming week I can put them together. Just need to kind of do a reevaluation of those. So I'm putting everything to do with Avery quilts off to the side so we can talk about the Irish chain quilt really quickly. We had so many blocks from last week. Look at all these. Isn't that just exciting? I'm going to set these on top of all the others, kind of set them to the side so that I know that this set goes over to the design wall first. Then I'll sort through them and kind of make that area clean and make that area organized. Okay, I think I've got enough of a workspace here. I'm going to point you down to my table so you can see my fabrics here. Okay, I've been wanting to put together a quilt for my newest grandbaby who's coming in June, so I don't have a lot of time. And the other thing that was going on in my mind was my daughter doesn't really want any more quilts, which it's not that she doesn't appreciate them. My daughter has a degree in fiber arts, but she just doesn't want a lot of stuff in her home, you know, like extra stuff. Well, have not vetoed her on anything regarding her parenting or her adult life, right? But my grandbaby is getting a quilt. But I was thinking, how am I going to have time to do that? Don't you think just love that right there. It's just so yummy. So I was thinking, how am I going to have time to do this? And then as I was working on the Mars quilt, you know, each time I went over to the machine and I was sewing on this and I was putting a leader and ender in here, I thought that's just wasted thread. I could be sewing together some kind of scrap quilt. I thought I'm just going to do that. I'm going to just get some fabric that, you know, that I like, that is coordinated well, that really is pleasing to me. And in the middle of the night or on the way to falling asleep, I remembered this stash. It was all inside this one container and all of this was with it too. But I've separated these out from this group. This bunch of fabric came to mind. I thought, this is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to do something kind of neutral that isn't baby-ish, that is more of a piece that the baby will enjoy, you know, and forever. You know, it's not just something that says, oh, that was my baby quilt and that goes in a drawer. This is, you know, hey, my grandmother was really thrilled that I was being born and she made me a quilt kind of quilt. Okay, so I was trying to figure out, how do I use my colors here? I just really love all these. And a typical Irish chain is not, doesn't have a lot of colors in it unless you have a really scrappy version. And so I got on Pinterest and I looked at a lot of different things. And then I came up with my design. And I'll put that back on the screen, how it exists right now. I was having a lot of thoughts fast and furiously, so my designs are not neat and clean, like, you know, what I have drawn out there. This is going to be hard to explain by just looking at the fabric here, so I'm just know that I'm going to be doing at least one test block, and then I'll show that to you. I don't know how soon I'll get to do it, maybe this weekend, but I do want to do the EQ8 first. I don't know the timing. But what my thoughts are, I don't know if that view is the best. Let me see if this is a better view for you. I feel like that's not a bad view, right? So I'm not doing an overly large quilt. I'm hoping to get something around 42, 48 inches. And I love the idea of this being like a big center block, like a 2-inch block. And radiating out from that block would be, going vertically would be the birds that would come out from it. And going down, well, I shouldn't say vertically, but going upwards on the diagonal would be the birds. So going that way and going that way. And then coming out from this square, going downwards would be, I don't know, are these little prairie dogs? Is that what they are? I just think they're overly sweet. Something about them just very appealing to me. And so since they're in the silver category, we're good, right? That would go this way and this would go that way. All right. But I want to use this whole palette. How do I make that make sense? I love that these are kind of like the colors of the sky. You know, like you get your pink in your sunsets and sunrises, and then you get just your gray skies too, just your clear skies. All right, but there's enough contrast to go against that. So what I'm thinking is, um, I would have, before I get there, I'm going to explain this, that this darker kind of chocolatey brown would be a rectangle here, 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 and here. And then you've got your 1-inch squares that go up here of your birds and then your prairie dogs. Okay, so you've got that. It's going to be right up against this. And then the next thing you have on either side of this radiating line of 1-inch square birds, you would have, oops, that's the wrong thing. You would have this. You would have pink on either side, and then you would have silver on either side, and then you would have this on either side. Yes, this on either side, or go pink, silver, pink. I'm pretty sure I want to use that. And then what goes right here is this. So I want to have a 2-inch square of this. So that would be kind of your block there. And then you'd have sashing that comes on this side of the block and sashing that goes on that side of the block. And surrounding this 2-inch square, we have the same treatment that you have here. This goes, vertical strip, vertical strip, vertical strip, vertical strip. And then you would have cornerstones to that are made out of this. That's the thought right now. That's how I plan to make my iris chain. I think my palette is absolutely yummy, and it calls my name as much as the desire to make one for my grandbaby, and as much as my desire to be productive while I'm working on the Mars quilt. So I know you guys got to be saying, how are you finding time to do all this? Because you're not like killing it on the Mars quilt as it is. I'm not. That's right. Because I have to spend X amount of time on this, X amount of time on that, X amount of time on this, and then, personal life objectives too, right? So that's my whole point here, is that I'm figuring out how to be productive whenever I'm doing the Mars quilt. I want to also be doing a secondary quilt. It's not a new concept, but if you're a new beginner quilter, you might not understand that this is something that quilters have been doing for a long while. Is they'll take their leader enders, or they'll take their scrap fabrics and cut them into squares, rectangles of whatever size they want. And every time they take their sewn together, their stitched together units out from underneath the needle, then they put in, paired up pieces of those scrap pieces that they've cut out. And then over time, before you know it, you've got all the units of a scrappy quilt. Well, I just kind of want to be intentional with what my scrappy quilt looks like. I want to make sure that I want to be making my Irish chain quilt. And the reason I didn't know I was going to do an Irish chain quilt. I just kind of got on Pinterest and started looking, and I have always liked an Irish chain quilt, but then I looked at it and thought, that's perfect. I didn't realize until just a few years ago how much Irish and Scottish is in my family. My mother's side is all German. They've been here for generations, but their side is like 100% German almost. A little French German, a little Finnish, and things like that. And some interesting things like point two of Nigerian and, things like that. But mostly German. So, in my father's side, I really thought was Native American. Like there's a lot of Native American in there. Do you know there's none in his family genetically? It's kind of crazy. Anyway, but on his side is almost all Irish and Scottish, which I never would have figured. Like never would have figured. So getting your genetics done, like 23andMe or something like that. And by the way, mentioning 23andMe, and I'm going to get off talking about me, but some people are saying that you should shut down your accounts now that they're going bankrupt because someone's going to be buying them. But 23andMe actually has a statement, about if ownership goes to someone else, that other person is bound by the laws and the rules that they agreed to with you. Now, who's enforcing that? Like, who is going to be making sure that happens? And I don't know. I'm not trying to be political or anything like that. I am the last person, the least interested in any kind of political stuff. But I just, kind of thought I'd throw that out there since it was relevant to this quilt. So when I saw the Irish chain quilt, I thought, that's it. That makes sense. This is a new life, a new part of the next generation coming into the family. That's perfect. And then I remembered these fabrics, and they had green in them already. And it was just in that lovely neutral tones. And I love the challenge of making that make sense in it all. That was a design challenge that spoke to me. So my goal is to figure out what, I need for one block and do a test block. Hopefully I'll get that done this weekend. I don't know, because I'm really chomping at the bit to do that. But I am telling you, there's a lot of stuff outside that I am chomping at the bit to get done too. Spring has come, pollen is on everything. There's just messes everywhere. And it kind of bothers me. But you know what? Such is life. Quilting kind of takes priority, and grandbabies take priority, and moving the needle on things takes priority. So I have made a dent here on this table. I can actually see the table. I'm going to take my Irish chain bundle and what? Hang on, I have a project box. I preemptively got another project box. I don't know, just my instinct told me to. I don't know when it was, some time ago. December 26th, because the Walmart sticker is still on there. It says December 26th. Hang on, I'm going to rip off the label. Yay. I had to put one of my stickers on there. I love my stickers. I don't know if you noticed, but I put them on there, and it just makes me happy. And my shirt that says that I wear as a sleep shirt, I love it. It there was just something about that Victorian woman looking dejected, and but you could just tell what's going on in her head. She's like, "Oh, I can't believe I did it again." Doesn't that sound like the internal dialogue that we all have when our bobbin runs out, and we knew that we didn't want our bobbin to run out, but we, tried to make sure that it could go all the way, and we knew it wasn't going to, but we tried to make it go. You could say the same thing about, running out of gas sometime, or whenever you didn't stop to fill up, whenever you had time to, those kinds of things. But I think the same thing kind of plays over to our real life. And I can't believe I made that decision. I did that, and I lost. I played Russian roulette and lost. That just looks like what she's thinking. In my mind, that's what's on her mind. Okay, so we've got a space right here. This is good. I can work with this. This was everything that was left over from that stash that inspired me to do the Irish chain. So I'm going to put that back into my stash, get that off of the table. And then I am going to go back through all of our blocks for Avery Quilts and see what I can put on the design board for you guys to take a look at. I want to get at least one combination on the design board from last week's haul, and then us look at the unicorn quilt again and find which grouping this goes to. That's going to be in another video. This one's already long enough. It was just going to be a clean my table with me. It's not completely clean, but it's sorted, and you've got some updates. You know that I goofed up big time on this. One of the things I was going to tell you about that, though, is so I went on to the Facebook group page. It wasn't Pro Stitcher Posse. It was just Longarm Quilters, I think is what it's called. And I asked, what should I have done? Because I took all the measures I've done previously with all the smaller quilts. And one of the tricks that I have not been doing, which I need to be doing with even my smaller quilts, is squaring up the quilt top and squaring up the quilt backing before I put it on the long arm. I just wasn't doing that. So that was an aha moment, and I think that will help. And also just knowing, there was just a lot of, there's more room for human error whenever you're doing something new. And if that new thing is and if the new thing is a big gap from anything you've tried previously, then there's just more room for error. It was just so large. that what was draping down in front of it was hiding my view of underneath. And before, I had habitually, I was checking underneath to make sure there was no looseness of fabric or any wrinkles going on or anything like that. But this one just, I guess it occupied my mind on a level that I allowed myself to tune that out. And because I could not see it easily, because I got a mirror there that I can see when there's a smaller quilt on there, I can see that mirror. Um, but but I just wasn't taking the time to do that. So knowing that, I just know that there's human error that was involved, and those are things I can easily correct for, right? Like, it's just pay attention. But also learning about squaring up the quilt top and the quilt backing before it goes on. That's huge. And then something else that I learned from that group was how people roll their quilts back and forth to get things nice and squared up and flattened out, and to make sure it's good and flat before they start. I hadn't done that before, and I can definitely see how it's necessary when you're putting on a long quilt, really big one like this. I forget exactly the measurements on it, but it's a 12-foot frame and it's filling up most of that, right? So it's big and it's very long the other way too. So to go back and forth, to put it on the belly bar, front roller, and then put it on the back one and roll it up onto the back one and look at how things are nice and squared up or not. And, you know, don't continue until you've got things good and squared up, and go back and forth. Once you get that backing on there and the batting and the quilt top, go back and forth until you're pretty sure, as sure as you can be, that everything's squared up and it's going to lie flat. The other thing I'm going to do, and I told you in the last video that I wasn't going to tell you about it until I had tried it, but I think it's pretty confident. But I'm pretty confident it's going to work, because somebody else on that Facebook group was doing something similar. But instead of using these clamps, which has just like I don't know, 3/4 of an inch or half an inch of contact with the top, I'm going to use the kind of, I was hoping I might have some in here by chance, but the kind of pants hangers that clamp down. It's a piece of wood on either side and it just clamps down. That's what I'm going to try to use whenever I'm doing these bigger quilts. So before I do any more stitching on that, I'm going to try that. I can see where maybe on a smaller quilt you might not want to do that, because especially on the left side, sometimes you're testing your tension over here, like on this outside edge. But if you have to let go of your clamp to have access to try to test out your tension, then you're not going to have the same tension on your fabric to get the same result for checking your thread tension. So I don't know. I'll play with that over time and see how it works out. But that was another thought that somebody shared on the Facebook group. Isn't Facebook amazing? It's just amazing. Social media in general has some real pluses. It's got some downsides, but it's got some real pluses. You know what, my friends? I think you've listened to me ramble enough. I am going to call it quits for this quick little video and try to get it out to you this evening. Whenever I'm sitting and chilling, I'll edit it real quick. Hopefully it won't take me too much time, and I'll get it out to you so that you can, see what's going on behind the scenes. And know that there was only one package for Avery Quilts this week. And that's great. That's fine. I had a really busy week, so this allowed me to clean up and to get organized. And, we've got a lot to work with so far. We need to make progress on those things. But I've heard from some of you that you got some things to send. I know that those things are coming. So I feel confident that this is something that's going to keep on going, and I welcome that, and I welcome more. So we've got our objectives for the Avery Quilts video. Come back around and watch that when you can. Keep the needle moving. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.